welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I am celebrating 5 years of owning Peggy. When this podcast goes out, it will be just a couple of days out from the day that I went and picked her up. And at that point I had already been and test driven her, fallen in love with her, and was anxiously waiting for the eBay listing to end because it was on bids, and we were kind of hoping that I'd get her for a price that I was reasonably happy with, and that she would be mine. Always a nerve-wracking way to purchase a car, but on the 22nd of June 2020 I was thrilled to have won and been able to go and pick her up from a place not too far from where I was living with my parents, and to make her mine. Now, I did a whole podcast way back when I started this podcast about the process of going and buying Peggy and testing it out and falling in love with her, and why I went for a Morris Minor. And obviously last week I looked into whether those reasons that I bought her all that time ago was a good reason to have bought her, and whether those still held up. And I'm pleased to report that in most cases they still did, and I'm ever so pleased with my purchase 5 years later. Now, we've had a truly fantastic 5 years together. We've covered 40,000 miles approximately. It's a little bit hard to tell because her speedo doesn't read completely accurately, but I've got good at guessing kind of what it actually means. And we've had so many adventures and so many stories, and it's been amazing to share them all with you guys on the podcast. And it's been a real experience, and I've loved so much of it. There's been highs and lows, as with all classic ownership, but I'm incredibly fortunate to have had these 5 years with Peggy, and hopefully many more. And I asked you guys over on social media, on YouTube, anywhere that you guys can get in contact with me, to let me know what you wanted to know about those 5 years and that 40,000 miles. And you guys have asked me some fantastic questions, and I'm really excited to answer some of them for you today. So I was asked, where have I been that I would not have been if it wasn't for Peggy? And that's a fantastic question, because it is so true that when you get into classic cars and you start going to places, and in my case start kind of talking online about what you've been up to with your car and stuff like that, you get to go to places that you'd never have imagined and get to experience things that you'd never have imagined. And the first thing that always swings to mind for me is the Royal Automobile Club. I got to go there in November of 2023. 2023 was a fantastic year for me and Peggy. We had so many brilliant adventures and experiences together in that year. We set up the Women Drivers Social Club, the Morris Minor Young Members went from strength to strength and really started to grow and make a big impact on the main club. We had a fantastic trip overseas and stuff, and it was just such a brilliant year, and I felt like I'd achieved so much. And so to be recognised for having achieved as much as I did in that year, with a brilliant, very glitzy and glam night out, and to take Peggy there, park her outside, and then use her to get home via Buckingham Palace and stuff on the way home at midnight. It was just fantastic. And the Royal Automobile Club is quite an exclusive club in terms of it's quite expensive to be a member, and it's only certain occasions that if you're not a member you'll ever get to go in. And the historic awards, if you're fortunate enough to be nominated for something like that, is one of those opportunities, but they don't often come up, and I was absolutely thrilled to have been considered for that. And so yeah, we had a fantastic time, and that's always the first thing that comes to mind, because if it wasn't for Peggy, I don't know that I'd have done any of the things that led to me getting that invitation, which was brilliant. Another one is the Lauman Museum, and that is something that I talk about any opportunity I get to go. Getting Peggy has meant that a lot of our holidays have been in Peggy, and it's been fantastic. And it also means that making sure that we go to at least the really important car things in the area when we go to a place is also kind of part of that experience. And so yeah, getting Peggy and doing all of that was all part of getting to go to the Lauman. We went on that fantastic trip overseas and then managed to go there, and we got to park outside, which you wouldn't have got to do if you weren't in a car that was over 40 years old. And it was just such a cathedral to motoring that we had an absolutely brilliant time. And I don't think necessarily if I'd have done a trip to the Netherlands not in Peggy whether we'd have gone, but I'm so grateful that we did, and we had just a brilliant time. And I now encourage everyone to go if they even have a vague interest in cars, because it is just such a beautiful place to visit, and they truly do appreciate motoring and the art of motoring in a really beautiful way there. Another fantastic memory that I've been fortunate to make with Peggy, because of Peggy, was parking on the street at Beamish. Beamish is a brilliant museum and lots of fantastic things there, but because the young members were hosting their Christmas meet there, and they opened recently their 1950s street, we got to park our cars on the 1950s street and yeah, just experience a really period area and take some beautiful photos and have a fantastic trip out as a result of having Peggy, that you wouldn't have had that experience otherwise. And I'm really thankful for that, because it's definitely one of my highlights of ownership in the years that I've had her. So that nicely wraps up that question, I think. Lots of things, and there's probably many more. We've been on a TV set for a TV program that again wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Peggy, and we had a fantastic time. So lots of things, and really does go to show just how much these cars open doors for you if you want them to. Now, another question that I was asked was about the people that I've met along the way, and again, somebody who really understands what classic ownership is actually like, asking that sort of question, because you find yourself meeting so many people, having so many conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have if you'd kind of turned up to a place in a regular car. I've recently started some work with a charity near me, and I turned up to their offices and had a massive conversation with them in the car park about the car and everything, and had another conversation when I went out to leave with somebody else who was in the same kind of office block at the same time, just interested in the car. You get stopped at petrol pumps. You have so many fantastic conversations and meet so many people as a result. So a fantastic question, absolutely, and these 5 years have filled with loads of those sorts of people, but I tried to pick a few kind of standout stories that you just wouldn't have if I wasn't in this car. Something from very early in my ownership of Peggy is that we went up to the Motorist to celebrate her birthday. So we did a 2-hour trip up and a 2-hour trip back to have some curry and some birthday cake, with some friends up there to celebrate Peggy's birthday and or registration day. And on the way up, Peggy's accelerator spring sheared, and we had to bend it and try and carry on to meet the friends up there who were going to give me a new spring. So it sheared, and we bent it, and we got a little bit further along, and it sheared again, and we managed to pull in somewhere a little bit more off of the A1 for that particular time, and we ended up actually in like a little yard, and this gentleman just appeared out of the bushes and said, "What do you guys need?" And we were like, "Well, actually we need a decent pair of pliers, because the ones that we'd got in the kit weren't really doing the job, weren't bending it properly." And this man disappeared off into the bushes and then came back out with this huge pair of pliers that you'd never seen anything like them. Took the spring, gave it a bend, and it saw us all the way up and no issues. And yeah, a random story that you'd never have if you weren't in a classic car with a slight issue. And of course, he knew so-and-so who used to have a Morris Minor, and all of those sorts of things that you always get when you come across someone who's keen to help out and have a chat with you. Another person that I'd have never had any sort of connection with without Peggy is Peggy's previous owner, Steve. To have met someone who loves the car as much as I do, has as many fond memories as I do of the car, is a real privilege, and I'm so grateful to have met up with him and been able to get in contact with him, and him living still quite locally to the car, and the car still being quite local is really lovely. And I'm hopeful that I get to continue to meet people who are fond of the car and keen to share stories and stuff like that through owning the car. But it was fantastic to meet up with him, and again, someone who I would never have met without the car, never have crossed paths with, maybe spotted in a supermarket or whatever and had no idea. But yeah, a fantastic little thing to have come across. Now, I've been really fortunate that I've come across quite a few people who are reasonably well known in various circles as a result of owning Peggy, and it's a really cool thing to be able to say, like at the Royal Automobile Club, I got to meet Richard Hammond and Richard Porter and have a chat with them. But one that really stood out to me was meeting Bobby Pryor from Radio 2 at the NEC a few years ago, when we first had the Women Drivers Social Club there, and Peggy was on the young members stand nearby. I got to meet Bobby Pryor, who'd come over and had seen kind of what I'd been doing online and had joined the club, and it was so exciting to meet someone that I remember listening to on the radio for years. And yeah, that was a really exciting thing. And because the car was there, and because she kind of recognised it and was able to kind of put a face to a name, we were able to meet. And it's been fantastic to see her kind of every year at the NEC since, and have a little catch up. And I had no idea really that she was so into her cars as she is, and has a little YouTube channel as well about the cars and things. So a really cool thing for me. And I remember just going around to everyone saying, "I've had my photo with Bobby Pryor." It was so exciting, and something really unexpected that you'd never think to kind of come across when you own a Morris Minor, but very cool nonetheless. Another person that I'm really thrilled to have met is Ian Allen, who did all of Peggy's restoration work. Again, it's someone that you never really think about coming across or whatever, but I've loved hearing all of his stories and his experience and learning from him, and finding someone who's as passionate about getting these cars right as he is a real privilege. And it's it's kind of like one of those relationships that you don't think much about, but actually is incredibly important to me, because he's been able to keep Peggy going and preserve her for me going forward. And if it wasn't for having the car and having the issues that I've had along the way of owning her, I'd have never come across him. I'd have never trusted him with a car and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a strange one, but you think, well, actually our paths would never have crossed. And he's such a fascinating gentleman with so many stories and so many years of experience and so much knowledge about the cars, that I'm incredibly grateful that I have had the opportunity to speak to him and learn from him and have a car that's been worked on by him. And finally, in this kind of people section, I think it's really important for me to highlight all the friendships that I've got from owning this car. Obviously, the Young Members Register has been kind of there for me very early on from owning the car, and meeting so many people through that, and people that I consider kind of friends now, not just car friends, which has been fantastic. And it's just I've seen it happen with my parents in terms of them getting friends that they've met through car clubs and stuff like that, and you don't really think about it when you buy the car, but it is an incredibly brilliant thing that happens, and you end up with this beautiful support network around you that I mean, what would you do without? It's brilliant. And yeah, such a lovely thing with the Young Members. And of course, more recently, the setting up of the Women Drivers Social Club has introduced me to a vast array of people that I'd have never come across if it wasn't for it. And I think they're brilliant and they're invaluable and so useful to know, and not just because of their experience with cars and stuff, but some of them have got some fantastic stories from their working life and stuff like that I'm so fortunate to know them for now as well. And you just meet all of these people all because you bought a car that is not on a forecourt these days and takes you on all these silly little adventures that you're so grateful for. And yeah, just thinking about all of the friendships and experiences that I've had because I've driven 40,000 miles in a car over 5 years to all these events and all these experiences and to the shops and whatever it might be. It's brilliant, and I can't speak more highly of it. It's been amazing. Now, somebody cheeky among you has asked me how much has owning Peggy cost me. And it's been an expensive 5 years. It's been a more expensive 5 years than I think I could have ever have imagined when I started out. Because she cost me, I think, $4,500 when I bought her back in 2020. And then there's been endless bills here and there of maintenance and repairs and things like that. And when you push a car into daily service like I did with Peggy, she hadn't been used very regularly when I bought her. She'd been kind of intended to go and be a holiday home car, but that hadn't happened because of COVID, and the owner had decided that actually he'd rather the car was out being used and enjoyed by someone. And so she got pushed into daily service, and that meant that she needed little bits and pieces really to keep her going, and things flagged up in that first kind of 10,000 miles about wear and stuff like that. So there's lots of bills, and of course more recently there's been a pretty hefty bill of her restoration, around kind of £16,000 if we kind of round it up. But the hope is that a lot of the kind of little odd job bits here and there that I'd spent previously was to tide her over until that restoration. And like I said last week, that bill for welding and stuff like that should hopefully not be one that I see for a good amount of time now, as long as I keep on top of maintenance and keeping her protected. But I don't really begrudge it. We all have hobbies, no matter what walk of life we're in. We all have hobbies, we all have things that we spend money on that we never expect to get back. This isn't just a car that gets me from A to B, like our modern. And when our modern costs us money, because all cars cost you money, when it's had a load of tyres go, or we've had to do a bit of servicing and stuff on it through the garage, and we have to pay for its MOT and all of those bits and bobs, you kind of begrudge it. You think, oh, that's an annoying bill that was kind of unexpected and a bit annoying, and it wasn't something I really wanted to spend my money on this month. But with Peggy and with Wyvern and with Jaffa, it's been a bit different, because you get fun out of them and you spend money on the parts, but you try and have a bit of fun with learning how they work and putting them back together, so you do some of the labour, or you get to experience kind of the restoration process, and you don't really begrudge spending the money in the same way, because there's that fun element, there's those memories, there's those exciting things that you get to do as a result of owning this car, that is added value that you kind of offset against the costs of running the cars and experiencing the cars. So actually it's not really a bother. And actually, if we're getting into it, the running of Peggy is cheaper than some other classic cars. We recently did a service on both Peggy and on Jaffa, and the parts for Peggy to do the servicing were noticeably cheaper than they were for Jaffa, so it's quite fortunate in that regard. But even then, we didn't really begrudge spending the money because of the fun and excitement that we've had experiencing owning the Reliant Scimitar. So yeah, it's not really a problem, but it has been expensive, and that can't be ignored. It's not going to be for everyone. You've got to be willing to see that side of things and accept that actually it's going to be more expensive sometimes than other options, but actually you feel like it's worth it, and that's the important thing, really. Now, easily the most asked question is, what is your most memorable experience of owning Peggy? And that, I feel, is an incredibly cruel question. I mean, I've been so fortunate to do so much stuff with the car, and you guys have come along for the ride for a lot of it and experienced a lot of these brilliant things that we've been able to do, places that we've been able to go, and picking one memorable experience is nearly impossible, or picking one really brilliant memory that you've got. I don't know how any of you expected me to do it, because I bet you guys couldn't do it for your own cars. It's a joy to own one. It's a brilliant experience, and every day is memorable because you're sat behind the wheel of something that makes you feel happy, and you get to see the world over the bonnet of your favourite car, and you get to see the smiles on people's faces as you drive by. You get to experience the world in a completely different way to when you're driving a modern car. You get the friendships, the stories, you get to go to the places that you never thought you'd go. It's impossible to pick your most memorable experience. I've mentioned a few things here already in terms of places that I've been and people that I've met, and those all make the list as well. So if I was to add a couple more to that list, I think Ireland this year is going to have been incredibly special and something that stays with me for a long while. I think the Netherlands, that trip that we did there, was really special, and also the fact that she was clearly on a bit of a poorly engine, but she kept saved that for when we got home, is quite a memorable thing for me. I know that these are just machines and they're just metal and vinyl and stuff like that, but I do like to think that she's took care of me over this 5 years that we've owned it, in the way that I've kind of taken care of her. These cars, you get in, you get out what you put in, kind of thing. And that's certainly been the case. She's been ever so good in that regard. The Lake District was an incredibly special trip as well. We had a fantastic time and some really challenging drives. Those sorts of trips where it's been kind of me and Jamie together in the car, making memories and having holidays and experiences, I think is always going to be top of that list, because that's the sort of things that I imagined happening when I bought the car all those years ago. Making those memories, having those holidays and those experiences is always going to be incredibly special. All of the things that I've been able to do with my family, going out on little convoys with all of the cars and stuff that we've got, and making memories that way, I think has also been really, really important. Working on the car with my family and my friends and getting to know the car and learning from them is also, I think, some of the most memorable things that I've done. So I haven't really narrowed it down much, but I hope I've got across that actually this 5 years has been incredibly special, and that it's been a brilliant 40,000 miles together, and I'm so excited for what every single mile going forward brings. And I hope you guys are too, because the plan is to continue sharing all of our story on here and sharing what we get up to and what I get up to over the coming years, months, whatever it might be. You guys know that after what I've spent on Peggy, she's a forever car, and I'm looking forward to kind of sharing as much of that with you guys on here as I possibly can. So that wraps us up pretty nicely, I think. We've had a pretty good 5 years together, me and Peggy, and she continues to be my favourite car and my very best companion for all of my adventures, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing about it. Be sure to go back and reflect on some of the things that we've done over the years, and I'd love to hear down in the comments which of our adventures you enjoyed hearing about the most over the last 5 years, and what you're perhaps hoping I will get to do more of in the coming years. But thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.